Welcome to another episode of the Cool Tools Show and Tell. Our special guest this week is Alex Marcy. Alex, would you like to introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure. Thanks for having me on. My name is Alex Marcy. I'm the president and CEO and founder of Corso Systems. We're a manufacturing technology company focused on helping manufacturing companies automate and optimize their processes. And I'm excited to be on the show today.
Well, thank you. I know you're a Cool Tools fan. That's kind of why you're here. So I'm really interested in seeing what you have in mind for us. What's a tool that you would be loath to lose?
So my first tool is a software package called Ignition Maker Edition. Ignition is basically an operating system for manufacturing facilities. It's made by a company called Inductive Automation in Folsom, California. If you've ever seen an episode of the show How It's Made, where they have an automated process where they're making something, you've likely seen some form of software like Ignition, if not this tool itself, that the operators would use to run the facility. So basically, they're using it to set points and run recipes and like run the equipment that's making whatever they're making at that facility.
So let's say, I don't know, is there a particular kind of machinery that this is targeted to, or is it sort of at a higher level? Like, I don't know, let's say that I had a family business and we made ball bearings. What would we be using this as, or if it were a family business and we're making granola, tell me how this is useful.
Yeah, so we have a family-run company in Chicago that makes fittings and flanges for pipes, so like oil and gas pipelines. And they use this software to run their furnaces where they're heat treating the parts and doing CNC machinings on the parts and things. And they have like one process where they have a robotic arm that's almost as tall as a house that loads parts that weigh up to like 1,200 pounds into CNC machines that are 2 stories tall, and it machines them into finished parts. And Ignition is used to tell the robots which part size they're going to run, and it loads into the robot to tell it where to go based on that part size. It goes in and it grabs the part off a feeding conveyor belt, loads it into a CNC machine, and it tells the CNC machine which operation to run for that part, when to pull it out of that machine when it's done, flip it over, put it in a second machine for a second operation, and machine both sides of it. And then we track.
How does Ignite know all this? You said
so we program.
It knows how big it is. It knows. So it's like that. That's like there's a lot of information needed to that. And does it kind of require a programmer to program this? And if you change something, how do you change it?
Yeah. So Ignition, a lot of that information is stored in a database. So you'll have a database of all of the parts that we can make and all of our recipes and the specifications.
We can make.
Or one of our customers, like one of the manufacturing companies.
Okay.
So if we're looking at like a food and beverage company, it would be, we're going to make, regular Oreo cookies. We're going to make double stuffed Oreo cookies. We're going to make vanilla Oreos and all the different flavors they make. They would have a recipe stored in a database for all of those products. And then Ignition would connect to that database, and it would know, based on querying that database, what recipes exist. And then a company like mine is going to come in and program Ignition to query that database and then talk to all of the plant floor equipment that actually takes ingredients and does processing on those.
And is your company doing the programming, or is it that you sell the software and the local business people do the programming?
So we sell the software as a reseller, and we also do the programming. So we're working with the customers to understand how their process operates and what equipment they have, and how we need to make this software talk to that equipment to basically make what they're going to make.
How much does the software cost?
So the Maker Edition that I'm talking about here is free for non-commercial use. So that's geared towards people maybe doing home automation, or like if you had a rural house with like a well and a pump that you wanted to track or to tie into like lighting or things. That's free. If you get into the commercial side for like a manufacturing facility, the specific pricing is on their website, but you're generally looking in the 5 to 6 figures for the different modules and things depending on the size of your facility.
It's dependent on what's it depend on?
So it'll be it's based on like server licensing. So you're going to buy a server instance of this software that will talk to some number of machines, talk to databases and things. And if we're looking at a large scale facility like the Tesla Gigafactory, they use Ignition. They're going to be looking at probably dozens of servers. So they're going to be, in the high 6 figures for their licensing cost. If you're looking at a mom and pop type manufacturing facility, they'll have one server that can handle all of their different equipment and processes. So you're probably looking more in the like $10,000 to $20,000 range.
So this has to run on its own dedicated server. It's not like a cloud. Yes. Or
they do have cloud options, and they also have containerized options you can run in like Docker, which is a popular container tool. But generally, companies will run it on site because manufacturing is geared towards things running on site, and they're reluctant to connect to the cloud for security and IP type reasons.
So let's go back then to the maker versions and the maker uses. How might a backyard or garage maker find this useful?
So they would basically download that, and then they can connect to, if they're using Arduinos or different microcontrollers at their house that are Wi-Fi enabled, or you can connect with like a serial connection. You can connect Ignition to those. There's also.
But what do you get out of it? I mean, what's the use case?
So it allows you to do all of the back end programming to get data into and out of your controllers and your sensors, and then it also gives you a front end, so you can develop a web-based or a mobile app-based interface to view your data and reports and trends. And if I want to open my garage door with my phone, I can put a button on my phone using Ignition Maker Edition. I can click that button and my garage door will open up with communication to it.
So in that sense, you would be competing with other smart home
software. Yeah. In a sense, I think it's geared towards folks like myself who do this, or manufacturing companies that also want to use it at home. And it's also good for inductive automation partners a lot with colleges and universities to start training the next generation of the workforce that's going to be doing this. And there's also a tool, if you go to demo.inductiveautomation.com, you can see exactly what Ignition Maker Edition is capable of with examples of things that they've done with their software, or people have done with their software for companies.
You might say then Ignite is sort of like a kind of steroid version of a smart home software that you could kind of expand to include your workshop and
exactly
things like that. But it has a similar kind of it has a similar kind of overarching umbrella coordination of many different data types with many different kinds of devices.
Yep.
Okay, so that's called Ignite. So what's your second tool that you'd like to share?
My second tool, I have one here, is called an Arduino Portenta machine control.
Okay.
So this is an example of a home scale, or they are used in industry, a controller like you might see that would run plant floor equipment. But this is a lower price point that is easy for somebody to buy for their house.
So I don't know what a controller means in this context. I'm not familiar with what I would do with a controller.
Sure. So behind this board here, there's a smaller board with a chip that is sort of like an Arduino like this, which is on steroids.
I'm going to pause and trying to
Yep.
describe this for the benefit of the people who are listening. So you're
Sure.
holding up the first one looks like a kind of like a breadboard almost,
Yep.
electronic breadboard that's really small, maybe the size of two decks of cards. And
Yep.
the other one, the Arduino, is of course about the size of a deck of cards. And
Yep.
the first one has two rows of pin receptacles. I don't know what the technical
Yeah.
term is.
Yeah.
But there's a
So
little,
these allow you to connect electrical signals. So
right.
I can connect temperature sensors here in the middle. So if I want to put a thermocouple that reads temperature in my house, I can plug that in, or things that are discrete inputs and outputs, so on and off, or analog, which are they give you a range of values. So if I want to open my garage door using this, I would plug in a wire, I don't know exactly where they are, but to the digital output that would send an electrical signal to my garage door opener to trigger it to open the garage door. And behind this, there's a board that looks different than this, but is similar to this in concept, where there's a chip on here that you can program to run a set of logic or whatnot that will take inputs and do things based on that. So it's basically a computer that you can program that's configured to talk to these electrical signals
The
and turn
controller,
them on and off.
right? The controller that you're holding, which is
Mhm.
about two size of two decks of cards, um,
Yep.
that does not have its own computing chip in it. That's more kind of like an interface or a control board that allows you to plug things in and plug things out. Is that right?
Yeah. So this front piece that has the green and orange pins on it,
Yeah.
that's the board. And then I don't have it. If you disassemble this, you would see behind here, there's a strip that's about as big as a pack of gum that has the computing chip on it.
Mhm.
Um,
And so you do, but you do
so
need an Arduino or something similar like to run it. It doesn't
I,
run by itself.
this comes with that. So this has an Arduino Portenta, which is like their industrial scale version of
But
the
and
Arduino
it's
Uno.
inside the thing.
Yep. Yeah, and it's just plugged here. If I unscrew it, you would
Okay.
see there's one on the back here.
So this would be useful for somebody who decides, either going back to the idea of a smart home, that you have
Yep.
a bunch of things that you want to control in your home, and you want to, obviously it's like a garage door opener, but what if it was something like a gate out front that you wanted to
Yep.
be able to have dependent on uh, whether the sun was shining or not, whether it was daylight
Mhm.
out, and then you could do this complicated connection of having something actuated, a physical thing that
Yep.
was, I mean, or maybe depending on the stock price, you wanted to have something
Yep.
go up and down the flagpole. The flag would be up if the stock was up and down if the stock
Mhm.
was down. You could use a controller like that to help you make
Yep.
it. Is that right?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay.
And I think people have talked about Arduinos on Cool Tools before. I think the benefit of something like the machine control is this is more designed for the electrical signals you would see in a house. So it's easier to interface this with the electricity in your house than this. This is possible to do that, but you're going to have to deal with a lot more voltage regulation and things.
Right.
Whereas this is geared towards being able to plug more directly into the wall and actually control things you would deal with in your house.
Cool. And could you repeat the name of that unit?
Yeah, it's an Arduino Portenta machine control.
Portenta.
And
Is that another brand?
yeah, so Portenta is how Uno is the model of this Arduino. Portenta is their industrial scale microcontroller.
Okay. And about how much does that cost?
I think this lists for like just over $300 US.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's one particular model you can buy from the Arduino website
Right.
for resellers.
And it looks like it has a number of ports, like it has like an Ethernet port. Does it have like
Yep.
an HDMI port or?
Yeah, so it has Ethernet, USB. You can plug a USB stick in. This is a communications port for an I2C bus, which is a common microcontroller bus. And this is a port for a Wi-Fi or a Bluetooth antenna. And this has Wi-Fi enabled as well.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
That's a real so that's a very maker item for those who want to
Yep.
hack something to have their computer control something physical.
Yep. And that pairs well with Ignition Maker Edition because you can program Ignition to talk to this and use this to talk to your electrical devices at home or whatever you need to control.
That's great. Okay.
It's kind of parallel together.
So Alex, tell us your third tool.
Yeah, so my third tool is a lot more simple. It's installed on my water heater, so I don't have one to show you. We can pull up the website. I believe it's a Watts brand hot water recirculating pump. So I live in a house that was built in the 1920s, and that was probably before they had the modern plumbing that they have now. So when they retrofitted with plumbing, they had to run, fairly large pipes throughout the house. And I found that to get hot water from the water heater in the basement to the kitchen sink might take 3 or 4 minutes of running water to get enough water flowing through the pipe to get the hot water up to the faucet. So what this is a recirculating pump that you install a pump on top of the hot water heater, and then you install a check valve at the furthest away faucet from the water heater. So in the upstairs bathroom, I installed this valve, and this basically connects the hot water line and the cold water line under the sink. And it allows the hot water to flow back through the cold system or the cold pipes back to the hot water heater. So instead of having to get all of the hot water pipe that has cooled off in the morning, flush that with hot water to get, say, hot water to the shower, we only have the little bit of cold water that's left in the cold water pipe, and there's continuously hot water circulating through the system.
And so what happens if you want cold water at the same time? You have to.
If you want cold water, that's the downside. Okay. Is it takes a little bit longer to get cold water.
All right. And you put the valve check at the furthest remote part, but is it sending hot water through the entire system? Even if you have another sink on another part?
It would depend on how your piping is set up. If you had, in more modern systems, they pipe directly to a manifold that comes out. So you're dealing with less pipe to begin with. In ours, it's a giant loop throughout the house.
I see. Oh, I see. You have one continuous loop.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it could be, if you have a house where you have direct pipe back to a manifold near the water heater, this is a totally useless thing for you. But if you're living in a house where you have a loop throughout your house, this can help get hot water quicker. But it does, I did find after I put it in, getting cold water out of the refrigerator, they have like a filter in the door. You have to run that for a little bit longer. Otherwise you'll get some hot water coming out of the fridge.
Right.
So,
and it's doing more than just adding pressure to it, right? It's not. It's short circuiting basically the loop.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has a timer on it. You can run it all the time, so it's continuously doing it. Or on the front of the unit, there's some switches. You can set a timer, so it'll do it in the morning when you're trying to take a shower, and when you get home and want to cook dinner or whatnot.
And it looks to be about the size of a cantaloupe or something, or approximately that size, and it runs off 110 power. It looks like.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay, so that's called a recirculating pump.
Yep.
Okay, so that's great. How about your fourth tool for us?
My fourth tool is something my sister has used a lot with her children. This is a Scuddles brand waterproof and sandproof blanket. So this is really good for if you're going to go out on a picnic with your kids.
Yeah.
You can take this out and it won't get wet if you put it on wet grass. And you can also take it to the beach and sand won't stick to it.
Wow.
And it's made of what feels like really soft cotton material. It's like feels like really, it almost feels like those microfiber fleece blankets that you would see like at Target. And it's like a very flat weave. I don't know how well you can see it on the camera, but it's a flat weave that doesn't leave much surface area for sand to stick to. and I don't specifically know what it's made out of, but sand like will not stick to it at all. It's like Teflon for sand, and it's a waterproof fiber, so
Huh.
it's really good, and it spreads out to probably like 6 by 8 feet.
Yeah.
Here it's folded up and it has a little
Yeah.
Velcro flap on it.
Yeah. Right
So,
now it's folded up into, it looks like a briefcase,
yep.
leather
Yeah, it has a
briefcase.
little
It's
handle.
folded up, and then there's a little leather patch that keeps it all.
Yep.
Um, and is that hard to kind of refold? Does it kind of have seams, or
Well,
it looks
it's pretty easy.
particularly
It's
a little
if
Velcro, I think. See there. Okay, there.
Yeah, it's got a Velcro tabs on it to keep it closed, and you do have to look to make sure you're pulling it from the right direction so that it will close the right way.
Yeah.
But kind of like with a map, if you're once you folded it up a couple times, you'll get used to how to do it. So,
Right. And it also it has some advantage in that it does have this tidy shape and form to throw in
yep.
your back trunk or somewhere there.
Yep.
Huh, that's really cool. And what's it called again?
It's a Scuddles brand, Scuddles. And if you look on Amazon, there are other brands, but this is the one my sister used and gave it to me as a gift.
Scuddles extra large picnic and outdoor blanket, and it's about $27. That's a really cool thing. Yeah, when we have an old grungy blanket that it does pick up everything sitting in our trunk, and this would be much nicer in many ways. Okay, that's cool. Well, thank you, Alex. Those are really neat tools, things that we don't normally hear about. So I'm really glad that you brought them up. Tell us about something that you're passionate about these days.
Yeah. So just in general, my company, Corso Systems, we're working to take manufacturing into the future. We find most manufacturing companies are still stuck in the paper age and using clipboards, and use the technology and systems and things that are, a decade behind consumer technology, especially with regard to security. So using modern automation tools and a human values-based approach, we're building a team of engineers to tackle complex problems in manufacturing. I think we do work that's vital to people's lives, even though it's work that's really invisible to the rest of the world, because it's all behind the scenes. I think people are aware of automation and maybe afraid of it, thinking it's going to come take their jobs. And I think in most instances that we're working on, we're simply using automation and technology to make people's lives and jobs easier, safer, and less taxing.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say part of our mission is to help build the new workforce of people who can work alongside automation and robotics and any new technology that comes out to do what they do better and safer.
And
help
how do you
keep
do
employers.
How are you doing that part of helping people become more adaptable and more comfortable with automation?
So we spend a lot of time with our customers and our team and people we meet in the industry, doing a lot of training and education on how to use technology and think about technology as a tool to help you improve what you can do as a human, not necessarily as a competitor to what you're doing and trying to take away your job. A good example of that is, taking away like repetitive welding jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a welder and you're kind of doing the same thing throughout the day, like if you go to a car manufacturing facility, they have robotic arms that weld the doors together. So you can kind of remove the human from that, and instead of having the person do the welding themselves, they can program and manage the welding robots. Mm-hmm. And it's not taking away a job; it's just moving a job up the chain of technology a little bit.
And in your own personal experience, when you install some of the kind of systematic software that you're trying to install to companies, and they do automate things that were previously done by hand, do you find that actually it is true that the people that used to do those things are migrated to a different job? Is that your own observation?
Yep. Yeah, I think what we typically see is most of the people that are working at these facilities are doing the jobs of a couple people anyway. because they've adapted over the years to try and get as much done as they can with the resources that they have. So when we come in with these tools and technology to automate some of that, it's freeing them up to just kind of do one job, and they don't have to be pulled in 20 different directions because the software and technology can help them automate some of those tools and tasks, things that they're doing.
Well, that's great. And again, the name of your company is what?
Corso Systems.
Corso Systems.
CORSO.
Okay. And we'll have a link in the show notes for that if you can include it in the spreadsheet. So I appreciate your sharing your knowledge and your expertise with us and sharing your favorite cool tools. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Thank you for coming on. And
thanks for having me.
Best of luck with your mission to ease automation and facilitate it. I'm all for it. So thank you again.
Yeah, thank you.
This year, our Cool Tools blog will be 20 years old, which means we've been posting something new every day for 20 years. It's only possible because of the very engaged and knowledgeable readers and listeners like yourself. You've kept this place going, and we are very grateful for you. With this idea of 20 years in mind, we decided to try an experiment this year, and I'm inviting our guests and listeners to join me on our Cool Tool Show and Tell, which is the program that you're listening to right now. So if you feel you'd make a good guest on this podcast and have 4 uncommon tools that you'd like to share with us, please sign up on our form on the website, and we'll see about inviting you. You must be comfortable talking on a video, and you need to have some tools that you can show. We record on, as you know, on Zoom. We do a YouTube version, a video version of it, as well as an audible version. Fill out the form if you're interested, and list your 4 cool tools, and we'll see if there's a good fit. The applications aren't guaranteed in any way, and we're looking at tools that are new to us and appropriate tools, and whether the times will work for you. So we're really interested in hearing from people all over the world, not just in the US, although the tools have to be available online, easily available online. And if you are a longtime listener, you kind of know what the definition of our tools are. They're very broad. They can be anything that's handy, from something in the kitchen to something you use to travel, to a workshop, to something professional that we may not know about. We're really interested in things that we don't know anything about. So this is an open invitation. We'll give it a try. If you think you make a good guest for this podcast, fill out the form. There'll be a link somewhere on our website. And we look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.